All right, I'm live. Okay, so right now, let's see. No one on. All right, so all right now I'm working on RTS. I'm just gonna talk through the stuff that I'm doing, and and I've got sound. How do I turn that? Right now, let's see. I've got my own stream echoing back at me. All right, so all right now I'm working on RTS. I'm just gonna talk through the stuff that I'm doing, and there it is. All right, cool. That's done. All right, so at the moment I'm working on an RTS, and I will just talk through what I'm doing. So I want to generate a system for controlling how units move. Right-click detection when unit can move is true. So it's only going to waste time doing that when the time is, or when it's marked to true that it can. And when that's true, it goes through each unit in the selection system to determine if the unit is movable, and if so, move it to the right-click location. Now, at the moment, I'm going to have everything teleport to the same spot, and I'm not going to worry about separate areas yet. All right, now I need to detect if there is a movement. I probably want to expand this out so I have a separate system for detecting movement or mouse operations and passing that information out, and then rely on that. Oh yeah, because right click, for instance, if I'm detecting right click versus left click, either one of them could be over UI, and especially with the new UI system, that needs to be tied together. Well, anyway, I'm not going to take care of that now. So just this one. I want to detect if that's there. So let's go over to the selection system to begin with. Also, I'm just getting more familiar with Rider now. I'm stepping away from Visual Studio and most of the AI tools that are available on it, like Copilot. All right, so first thing in this is pointer over UI. We've got the same thing. I'm going to need that. So I should probably move this over into its own separate helper class. Yeah, let's do it. Doesn't need any state held in here. Doc root, grabbing doc UI element. In panels, what is panels? Panels is UI document. Okay, that's static. Okay, cool. Yeah, this should be fine. I should be able to just turn this static. Yeah, no complaints. Good. All right, so for here, let's add a class and we'll call it UI helper. Okay, there's UI helper. It has the CS file. Wrong one. Cool. Now, let's see, this one wants to know where that is. So that is in UI helper. Dot. Doesn't know UI helper. Why? What namespace did it put on there? Wrapped it in all this stuff, which I don't think I'm using in any of mine right now. I am not, and I'm gonna keep it. I will keep it that way for the moment. Okay. Selection system had an error. Is pointer over UI that needs to be static? Are we static? We are. Oh, and private, so this needs to be public. What? Why is get component bad? expensive invocation moment. Yeah, it is. Because I'm getting the transform, or not the transform, I'm getting a component. I'm looking it up. In this case, the hit, well, there's not much of a choice. Is there a better way to do that? Like, I get that that's expensive and I don't want to do that very often, but is it really? Like, what am I worried about here? So, verifying that was. I'm getting, this is a point where I would use AI. And I think AI is a reasonable thing here to ask a question where I don't initially have an understanding of why. Like, I understand why get component can be expensive, but it's effectively a list. It's not a high cost lookup. So, in comparison to like find and seen. So in this case, let's check this out. Like, I understand that if I can, I want to hold a reference. But in the case of using a physics check, I need to validate that. So uh, in my code, I'm doing a physics raycast unity to detect if the mouse is over an object, to detect what object the mouse is over. Then from there, I use a get component call to pull up my first real reference inside it, the object. Now, if I want access to that object, to that component, if I want access to that component, I don't think there is a more performant way to do that yet. Not from a physics check, from a physics raycast. However, Ryder is complaining that get component is slower and should be avoided. Am I missing something? Is there a more performant option here? Oh, wow. Look at that. Really? Well, that's interesting. Is it going to respond in what? Considering my language to communicate with you was in English, perhaps you could respond in English? Okay. Y-Writer. Yeah. Okay. It's a static analysis warning. Does linear check. Okay. It doesn't care about that. Is there more performance? Short answer. Not directly from raycast hit. Best options, use try get component. Oh, okay. That actually is reasonable. 20% faster to use this one for try get component. Cache once. Well, duh, but you can't really use that in a raycast click. I would basically just need to replace raycast click. All right. Yeah, it's really the only difference. I don't care about that one then. That can go away. Okay, so get component equals null. All right, operator equals expensive. Comparison to null. Is it really? What do you suggest? Equality? Use the equals. Dot equals. Yeah, I'll just leave those for now. This is not supposed to be that high performant of code anyway. All right, so basic idea is I need to evaluate in the same information. Let's go to here. All right, so my intention over here, get rid of that. On early, I don't need that. I don't need that. That selection system. In this case, I want to generate, yeah. So selection system, we're going to grab this stuff. I will need to put in a more standard class for this later. Yep. All right, so let's see. Contact. Did we make contact? And we got the out hit. And then Boolean shift is pressed. I don't care about shift key in this. I can go away. All right, so inside of here, I have now detected that I have used the mouse. If the mouse current left button, we're going to change it to right button. Was press this frame. We can do a faster check. We're going to do a pull, which this is from an update. Yeah, I get that this is a weaker performance item. So let's step into here. Public, not public. It's not the mouse. I need the unit can move. That is going to be a selectable. No, it's into scriptables. This will be a Boolean observable. Public Boolean observable, and that one is going to be selected selection contains movable units. Okay, cool. We'll take that one. So now before I check this, I'm going to do a double check on this. Let's put an OR. All right, so if selection contains movable units, dot, oh, no, we're going to ignore this, and I don't need to check that memory as often. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have an observable here. All right, so public private bool can move unit. All right, now when does can move? Because I need to make sure that gets captured on an update from a separate system. And I would need to make sure that that other system operates before this. Otherwise, I need to do a pull check. And if I don't, I need to make sure that my update stream happens first. And that's kind of an annoying thing to have to check. All right, so for now, I'm just going to pull this. I'm not going to take advantage of the fact it's an observable. Dot value, sure. All right, so if selection contains movable units, that needs to be an and, not an or. Mouse.current right button was pressed this frame. All right, so if it's over UI, then we skip it. We don't care about it then. Or at least that's not what this part of the system is doing. Next, we have a raycast. So we find out what object we're on. And we basically need to know if the object can teleport to this location. So to do that, let's figure this out. I need some way to detect that, such as a tag that sits on the object. Or I can put it in a layer, because that would make sense. If I'm right-clicking on it, or if I'm... Do I care about that? I want to be able to click to location. Yeah, for now. Whatever. Because I don't want to place it on top of another object, so it does need to be something with terrain. All right, so let's take a look at what I've actually got in the scene. Is that rebuilding? I think it is. There we go. All right, Archer system environment. Everything in the environment. Let's put a tag on here. Is anything using a tag? Right now I'm using a demo scene from, what was this from? Endless Pack, no. Horror, Tiny Toon People, Top Down RTS kit? Is that it? I don't think it was, but maybe. Why is it taking so long to expand? Buildings. Oh yeah, look at all this stuff. Okay. Do we have a prefabs option? You know what? I'll just go to one of these things. Expand it out, grab one of the items, and show me an object that's sitting inside of there. Alpha blended, so it didn't put its object there, but we've got this. Okay, where are you sitting? Top down, I think this is top down RTS for the assets pack. Packs on K4. The standard assets are free assets provided by Unity Technologies. This is part of Unity? They provided this scene? Anyway, I pulled in this scene because this is part of the asset pack I wanted to use for this. Pull this over there. The stream tool thinks that there isn't a stream. Select a stream. No current streams. Good job. Now, what's next? All right, so for the environment, let's take a quick check. Falling leaves. I don't want the trees. I don't want it to be something that I click on and the trees react. Is there, what's a base object here? Hey, scene, why aren't you selecting? Because that sure looks like an actual terrain element. Oh, everything's no click. That would help. Okay, so it's terrain, but then there's also sub-objects inside of there. I want to be able to be on top of these, but at the same time I don't. Okay, I'm just going to make it anywhere inside of here, so let's take the parent object. And on here, let's create a new tag. Plus, what tag is this going to be? Unit can environment. Environment doesn't feel like the right word, but whatever. Let's just throw that in there right now. So system tagged environment. Yeah. Wait, that doesn't change all the objects, does it? Of course not. Okay, well, for now, I'll just put the terrain on there. That's something I can improve on later. Environment. Okay, so that's inside of here now. And also, let's put this object in there. Rooms bridge. And all of your child elements need it too. Anyone know if there's a way to do this where you can set a tag on all of them? I don't usually use tags. But at least the tag, I've got the memory reference, and I don't need to try looking it up to see if it exists or doesn't exist. Kind of feels like it would be good to have an object inside it that pulls up references, has its own smaller list dictionary of it, one with just a lookup table for types. Does it have this type? But again, that's not what I'm going for in this. All right. Environment. So environment has it, terrain has it. That sounds good. I'll go with this. Let's see if we can actually click on the terrain, if that's going to count it as that. Oh, layer. Why was I not thinking about this? Add layer. It is a physics thing where I want the character to stand. Okay, so we'll go with user layer 3, which is going to be environment. Let's see. Environment still feels like the wrong word. Does it feel like the wrong word? Whatever. I'll change the name and fix it later. Let's go back to environment, change that to environment, and yes, change the children. That can take a while, or is it just going to be able to do it? Oh, it already did it. I guess there's not that many objects in here. Cool. Okay, so that has a lot of stuff in it, but for right now, I can ignore it. I can go to trees and I can take this off the layer, default. I don't want him to land on a tree. Excellent. Yes, change the children. Lights don't matter. Ignore raycast, yes. Stamps. Ignore raycast. I would assume that the stamps are any of the images, graphics that just appear on some scene. Yeah, I wouldn't want them to appear on top of this. I would want them to appear to the side. Or like in it. They stand in the tall grass. They are not on top of the tall grass. Layer will be ignore raycast. Yes. Cube physics. Oh, this isolates the game down to a region? Is that what this does? Oh, and then this map is a mistake. What's happening here? Okay. But that must have been a while ago, so I lost the changes I made there. Let's see about putting this back. So let's find out a smooth height. We're going to go to this one. Let's put it on here. Okay, we're going to blur opacity. That's what I want to affect. That only gets the edges. Let's go to set height. No. Raise or lower terrain height. And left click to raise. Shift click. Okay, what height level is this? Let's just assume that that's 500. I'm going to go to here and say, where are you? Terrain and set height. Set height, we're going to go for 500 to begin with. All right. That is going higher than where I am. Okay, what if I set that to 0? That should be dropping. Okay, so that's just above 0. So it would be nice if this had a show me the terrain height for this. I imagine some of the newer tools. Oh, this is the newer tools, isn't it? All right, well, whatever. We're going to go to this one and we're going to set that to, let's try 10. That one's too high. Let's go to 5. Set height to 5. That looks right. That's just a little bit less. So let's go to 4.7 because I broke the terrain before. There we go. That looks better-ish. All right, better. That bridge makes more sense now. I must have accidentally edited that when I first put it in here. Rain, where are you sitting at? Okay, so I'm going to want to be able to click over to there. Terrain should be into this. Cube physics, that one doesn't matter. That should go to ignore raycast. Yeah. Yes, change the children. Particles. Ignore raycast. Yes. And static. But this includes all sorts of stuff in here. Okay, that includes this. But then what's some of the other stuff it includes? What is that? That's going to ignore. All of these rocks are individually placed for the steps. At least they seem to be face side only. Alright, well, I'll add those ones to this. That's going to be environment. Yes. Now I need the layers. So over here we have layers. Now I need my character to be able to move. So inside of this movement system, I need to be able to detect selection contains, oh yeah, whether or not things can move right now. That's unit can move. All right, now let's go back into the class. Inside of here, I do need to know what layer. All right. No, not that. Yeah, let's see. So if I want that, I want the raycast. What was the option called on this? The options I have in here is int layer mask. All right, so I want the int layer mask, but I'm not going to set it through integer. I want to use, what's it called? It's called a layer mask. Layer mask? Is it literally layer mask? Public layer mask. Movable layer. Layer units can move to. Sure, let's call it that. All right, layer units can move to. Now, if I'm going to do that, do I know I shift it. So I want to find out what layer they are. They can be multiple layers at once, can't they? All right. All right. Just want the one layer. Does that have the ability to set the what? No, it's not. It's just set it. All right, cool. Oh, whatever. So layer check. I need to do the layer check, and Where does that end up on this list? Ray distance layer. Out. Max distance and then layer mask. All right. So we'll just go to 1,000 for now. All right. No. I wanted to just get the one. One. Is it shift by one? Is it the other way? Whatever. Let's try this and see. Okay, I need to see whether or not we actually got to click somewhere. So let's just do that. So to begin with, this is going to be if we right clicked and we have a unit selected that can move. Well, right now, just we have a unit selected. Oh yeah, and that's there, that it can move. So it's those two checks. Now to do this, if we did, we're going to say if contact, no, it's lowercase. If contact debug.log hit.transform hit.position point .toString, sure. What do you mean just added structural navigation? It selects next / previous code element. What is that? I'm not even sure what it's talking about. Whatever. Anything look out of position? No. All right, log. Take the log. Nope. Debug.log hit point string name. We're just going to test it. Play. All right, right click, nothing happens. Nothing shows up in the debug log. If I select him, oh, what's this? Stack Overflow, where? Set. We tried to set the value, ended up with a Stack Over. What? I changed set over here. This one was already calling this. I made a change to this recently in the last one. Okay. Oh, got it. So this one. There. And now we're just going to say value. Value equals value. So I change it over here. That sets this one, which is what actually makes the change. Wait, then this is calling out the... That's not the thing. It's underscore value. That's what I want to change, underscore value. That's the field. Uppercase value is this, the public one. Cool. And is this code able to continue and play? I think so. I don't think I'm doing anything that doesn't work here. Clear. Oh, I never set the layer. Environment. That's probably not it. All right, so let's make sure we've got a few other things. One, contact. Let's put a debug log here. No, wrong one, movement system. So in here, we just want to find out, did we actually get both of these set up? So debug.log. .logger? What is that? comma, so movable unit selected. Wait for that to come back online. Don't need that one anymore. Hey, why didn't it come back up? Okay. Okay, no right click works yet. Select unit. Okay. Oh, hey, and look at that. What did it have? Movable unit selected, right click, but it didn't have a position because the object wasn't in the scene. It clicked on something else, and the first element it hit was in the way. It was raycastable. It was selectable, but it wasn't on the layer. So I do have some mistakes in here. So let's see. Terrain should be good. No, why not? What is selectable? Looks like this area is. Okay, so if I go back to the code, I'm going to get rid of this one. We know we're hitting that spot. The next one is whether or not we made contact, which is the contact that's hitting the raycast. Am I doing that right? Let's look that up. Grab that. Unity layer mask physics raycast example. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So we got the layer mask. Get the mask wall. I don't care about that. We're going to use a layer mask. Next, we get the layer mask. Oh. I just literally pass in the layer mask itself. Why am I overcomplicating this? Did that option not used to be there? Hmm. All right, that all seems to be working. So I do get the position. Now I just need to move the unit. So let's take care of that one. At this point, we know we got contact. So instead of logging the hit point, we're going to move the unit. Move unit. All right, so from here, for each... Oh, I need access to the selection system. So in this case, for now, I'm just going to go with this being a singleton. So public static, what type is this? Public static selection system. Instance, yes, thank you. All right, I need awake. Is awake early enough to set this? Yeah, I guess so. No, static, because then I can't use recompile and continue play. Let's get rid of that one. All right, I'm going to make an observable for this one. So what do we have? Ability observable is the closest. Control CV. And this one's going to be called Selection System Observable. Selection System Observable and Selection System. Well, this is incorrect. That's not the one that I wanted. All right, fine. This one goes away. Delete. Delete. Boolean observable. Sure, that one's probably the closest. Camera observable. That's almost exactly what I need. All right, let's go copy. This one was selection system. Selection system observable. Got it. And then over here, we're going to go with selection system. Now it needs to know the selection system. We need to know the reference here, and we're going to call this underscore selection system. Sure. Why do I care if it's null? I don't need to set it. The Unity handles this part. All right, action selection system. So a selection system needs to be both on the same side. Can I just do this? Yeah. Invoke underscore selection system. This dot listeners, that's because it's this one. Same, it won't accept it. Invoke camera. What? Oh, right there, because it's got the, yeah. Oh, I hit build. Now what I meant. So what do we got in here? Inside we're going to change the selection system over. So in this one we're going to return underscore selection system. This dot underscore selection system equals value, then return because we don't need to change it. And underscore camera equals value. This system loses all its references because I'm using action and not Unity action. So this one would lose that as well. Given the case, I'm just going to give up on that feature for the moment and skip it. All right, so that one goes away. Delete. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, movement system. Back to movement system. Inside of here, I do need to know what that object was, so I need the instance, the singleton. All right, so public static selection system instance. Yes, perfect. Thank you. And then we go to awake. So we awaken everything, and then after that, we are going to say instance. Oh, because I've got a instance equals this. Good. All right, so on awake, we get instance Sure, that's fine. I don't care. All right, update. We set the information. Yes, we're going to find out if it's selectable or not. Okay, so this is inside of which system was complaining here? Yeah, I needed that inside of that environment. Okay, so now over here, we don't need a reference to it because we've already got this. So Boolean observable, yes. For each something, what is the selectable? Is that it? For each selectable? Selection system has a list of selectables. Okay, perfect. That's what I'm going to use. Let's create a specific return function for that. Get rid of this one, get rid of this one, and we're going to construct a new one. What? Oh, okay, yeah, perfect. Public void. What would be the function? The function needs to take any items that are in here. Well, I don't need that up and running. I get rid of those ones. Over here, can get rid of that one. And refresh that page. We're going to get rid of this, remove, no, delete, 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 delete. I don't need that up either. What else have I got sitting open? Is that accurate? Yeah. All right, so that one's in there. Cool. Time is it now? Oh, it's been almost an hour already? Okay, public update abilities. In this one, I need to get, not a void, I need to get a list of selectables. So I enumerable ability, not ability, selectable. Get selected, and in this case, I'm going to put a feature in there. What is that? Ability by ability. For int I equals 0, I is less than. With this one, I'm trying to get all of the currently selected items. And what is the chance that I could change that? I guess that'll be an error to hit in the future. For now, I don't need to resolve for it. Okay, so we'll just go through each of the items. We're going to say selectable that was stored in selected. I is less than selected dot count I plus plus, going through each item in order. Doesn't really matter, it's an array of objects. From here, we're going to say if selected dot contains, is that, no, if selected, and this one is I dot, and on the selectables, I have a transform, what abilities? List of abilities, dot abilities. dot abilities dot contains by ability yield return selected. Okay, perfect. So I now have a function to gather the information as I need it. I can ask the selection system to get selected by ability, passing in the ability, and it will yield back an entire list of those. So now, for each, and what do we need in this one? This one's going to be a collection. For each int, no, for each selectable s in selection system dot instance dot get selected, and I need to know if it's for this ability. What was the ability? Oh, I need the actual ability to be referenced in here. Public and ability, and this is going to be movability. This is designer configurable. I suppose I could be enumerable. Just an enumerator? And still let the designer select from those. Okay. All right, so what have we got here? Selectable for each one of these, we are selecting that, and now we're just going to move its position. So we're going to say the game object reference for it. We're just going to say game object, no, s dot transform dot position equals hit that point. That's it. Theoretically, this should work. Let's go try it. Let's move that camera over to here. So camera, Control Shift F there. Play. What? Oh, it's missing code. What is the code we're missing? We've got movement. So here's the movement system. We got the environment. We need the movability. It found nothing with this movability because it's null. So here's the movability. That should be it. What? Oh, okay. No, I know what's causing this one. So on each one of the prefabs, I've got, where is that one? The archer. The archer, when I select, what I'm actually selecting over here is the selection region. So in that case, that is a child object, which is why I put in the root element. So it is selectable.root. So now let's go into here. Instead of saying s.transform, we're going to say s.root.transform. And was that to a transform? That's a transform reference. We're already there. Where did that code go? Still working on it. Good. Okay, so now let's see if we move the whole object. Select. Okay. What? Oh, my selection image actually shows up in some of the views. Well, whatever. I will improve on that later. Right now, I can select and move. The movement is instantaneous. Let's save all of this side. And so the next thing we'll need to do is get past the instantaneous movement. Let's go over to here. Instantaneous movement. That one's got to be in favorites. Hey, how do I move something to favorites? This is not recent? I'm editing this every day. It's literally got edits sitting in there right now, and it's not considered recent? Okay, still fighting. Anyway, we're going to go into here, and the update on this one is that now selection system, no, that was already finished. Right click, moves unit. Commit those changes. Publish branch. The current branch main hasn't been published to the remote yet. Oh, have I just been committing locally and never actually put any history online? Huh. Oops. Okay, yeah, that's got a while. It's going to have to update everything. I will leave that one go. And for now, I'm going to go back over to my vampire code, or vampire book. So to anyone who happens to watch this, the reason that I'm adding in a book that I'm writing on this is, for one, I'm not showing everything. There's times I'm writing where I don't have this up. However, what I do have in here is that I want to make sure that people recognize that when I'm writing this, I'm not using AI to write. I may use AI to help me study. I may use AI to help me search for something in my book. For instance, I've got almost 50 chapters here. I can drop all those files into an AI and say, which chapter was it and roughly where in the chapter did so-and-so talk about this? And that helps me go back to that spot and find it and say, oh, okay, yes, it's here. And it's not about like letting the AI digest and separate this out. For one, I can just run this locally with LM Studio. Whoops. However, let's see. Yeah, I can run this on here. So I do use AI for some of the chapter information. Like this is a local, this is LM Studio that I run on my computer. And inside of this, I've got a word. Okay. One of the things that I did inside of this is I would pass in the outline and a chapter and please describe how this operates, like what this looks like. And then I would have it come back with a description to me of that information. And I can use that in a shorter search to basically say, hey, which was the chapter that covered this? That way I've got one document that lists all of those things. However, to be honest, in a lot of cases, even this it sucks. It barely gets the concept. So I find that I don't tend to rely on it very much, or at least that example of attempting to try to use it didn't work well. All right. So in this case, right now, Alice is out with Kyle. And so in the vampire world, characters are, the vampires are not allowed to hunt alone. Basically, there's too much of a risk that a new vampire could be created anytime that they eat. So they always go on a buddy system, and the other one is there to help ensure things. Worst case, they may actually decide whether or not to bring this person in, or they may choose to kill them. The vampire's view on life is generally that don't keep the human race alive and make them sure that there are plenty of them. Um, and so they want to keep them alive, like the larger numbers of them. So they would try to do things to stop wars, but they wouldn't care about an individual person. Anyway, so they can't eat directly. They could try to take someone's blood directly, but then that has a very high chance of turning them into a vampire, unless they take enough to kill them in the process. All right, so Alice and Kyle quietly left the back door with the lights out. Alice had never seen how vampires do this. In the previous chapter, it left off with, while Alice was in her own little world, Kyle said, "I'm hungry. Can you come with me?" All right, so Alice and Kyle quietly left out the back door with the lights out. Alice had never seen how vampires do this and was curious. Kyle also reminded her that vampire law required a second to be present. Alice is new to this. She's a human pretending to be a vampire. Then Kyle asked, "You said you broke into a local doctor's office to get blood?" Alice's mouth hung open for only a moment, but closed it again, hoping he couldn't help tell she was lying. That she had lied. But now she needs to think. But now she needed to make that realistic. But now she needed to make that realistic. No. No. Not a doctor's office. There's a small hospital about 3 miles from here. There's a small hospital about 3 miles from here. I used that. However, since I did that, I'm under the impression. No. At this point, I'm questioning whether or not Alice wants to lie about this. So she wants to hide that information. She wants to hide that she didn't know. So how would she phrase this? There's a small hospital about 3 miles out of here. I used that. Oh, actually, if she changes this just slightly to say that uh, she didn't actually take it from like their blood storage, she had a chance opportunity to grab one. Use that. So I was more lucky than anything. There was a blood pack on a supply cart. I grabbed that. I was more lucky than anything. Okay. Now, Alice didn't actually do any of this, but she needs to convince the vampires that she actually is one. All right, so I grabbed that, but she doesn't want them to actually go to the hospital and have her find out that she doesn't know what it looks like or where the blood might be. I grabbed that. All right, so he's going to need to he's going to need to think that he's in a small town in Wisconsin and he's usually in New York. However, he's 140 years old and he has traveled around. He did take vacation before. Vacation in this book for a vampire is where you take 20 or 30 years. However long your age and appearance would allow you to appear like, oh yeah, that's so and so, they're 35. And oh yeah, that's so and so, they're 17. That you're somehow inside of both that range to fit into both. Alice is one who's particularly young. She's very petite. She's tiny, and has um, uh, there's not really much else description. There's not a lot of description that I put on her. And I think that's really the key thing. It's the fact that she's petite, a little short. And so she looks younger for that. But she's 19 in this. Okay, there was a blood pack. I grabbed that. Kyle would need to be thinking about where he's going to go to get blood in a small town in Wisconsin. He needs to get somebody. Now, to do this, he basically needs to get somebody alone without a chance of someone else seeing. Alice is going to be walking with him. Now, Alice is not a vampire, but she does have some vampire abilities. So she can actually move like a vampire. She can do certain things, but she can't take human blood, not without getting sick like a human would. All right, so inside of here, any spots that might be more active this time of night? So at this point, it's like maybe 3:30 in the morning. They left a friend's house, returned back to Alice's house, which they're just visiting, and now they left Alice's friend's house at like 3 a.m. Any spots that might be more active this time of night? I don't know. Most things shut down. Most things shut down around now. Not around now. Most things shut down. I don't know. Most things shut down pretty early. Her eyes lit up. Lit up. There's a gas station just off the highway. That's open 24/7. It's open all night. Okay. All right, that's open all night. I don't know. Most things shut down pretty early. Her eyes lit up. There's a gas station just off the highway. Does that feel right? That transition. I don't know. Most things shut down pretty early. Her eyes lit up. Remembering something. Calling out that she's remembering something, that's a habit I'm trying to get out of, where I describe how she's responding to it, what her body is doing in reaction to her emotions, basically trying to express the emotions through action. And so if by actually saying her eyes lit up, that kind of tells us already that she's recognized this, or that she remembers something in this case. There's a gas station just off the highway, so I guess that'll probably do for now. All right, that's open all night. I'm going to put this up here. All right, that's open all night. Now, where is the rest of this? We're going to move that to there. Mute. Okay, there's a gas station that's open all night. Oh, fun. Stood still for a moment. Okay, so at this point, he's probably going to be thinking that this could work, but you have to consider what problems they're going to run into. So he's a vampire that's been doing this for a long time. What would bother him in this case? What would he consider a risk? Well, one is that those things have security cameras. So the security cameras running, a vampire does not want to show up on video footage. So they could be in the video, that's fine, but they can't be having dinner on the video. Why is that one there? That's fine. Move over to there. All right, Kyle stood still for a moment. So he's thinking through this. Problems are the lights. Maybe I should actually go inside his head for a moment. I think that'd be reasonable here. From experience, yeah, I think I'll just do that for now. I could change this later. All right. From experience, gas stations didn't work well. Cameras, well lit. Didn't work well for the cameras and being well lit. However, if one was alone, if a person was alone there, then, but didn't remember anything happening, they have, vampires have magical influence in this. So with the magical influence, they can say, ignore this, forget this. And simple things will generally just kind of slip their mind. Like if they really put effort to it, like, what was I doing last night when I set down that and then I lost track of this? And a lot of people don't really go through their memory in a structure like that. So a vampire can usually trust things in this. However, Ignore Me is a lot more active. That's a spell used earlier in the book. Ignore Me is anytime that they're passing by a door, the Ignore Me spell is on it, then people just don't notice the door. They don't really think about it. It never becomes a point in their mind where if they pass by and they were asked to describe this empty hallway, they wouldn't remember that there was a door on that side of it. Okay, so, however, if one was alone but didn't remember anything happening, however, there might not be any other options. He debated for a minute. Okay, there might not be any other options. Let's start. Well, for now, let's try that. Are you up for a run? the gas station wasn't far from the hospital. Also in the 3 mile. Also in the 3. While she treadmill regularly since gaining her powers. Since gaining her abilities, she largely ignored it. Okay, so how could I describe that more through an action? She's worried about how much time. She's worried about what's going on, like not her weight. She's worried about not having enough energy. How would she express this in an emotion? Looking at her legs, she would look at her legs like, do you have the energy for it? Like taking a breath, looking down at your feet. Let's keep the description of the memory lighter. Alice remembered. I'm not for a run. Can we get the driver instead? Stop. Alice's eyes lit up. The driver. Like, not to drive us there. Yeah, the vampires are pretty rich. They have plenty of money, but they don't have. And Alice is new to this, and so right now, Kyle is basically paying for the driver. That's kind of what the presence is, and actually, no one really questions it because Alice also got a job that pays a lot compared to everyone else out there in her hometown. All right, the driver, not to drive us there, but for a snack. Or a source. I feel like I should have a reason why they can't use the driver. So, for instance, you call the driver, they come back to pick you up, and then you've got a record of them coming to you. And generally, they stay in the car in this case. Like they might get out, but you could still have cameras around the car. Now, the driver service is local to the area. So they're in Wisconsin. It might be one of the larger towns like Milwaukee that they're near, maybe Madison. But anyway, so they're somewhere in that area. Oh yeah, they were like 15 minutes from an airport where they were able to land the jet. They took a private jet out there. In this book, the vampires largely control the world, but it's done not directly. It's done by influence. They make sure they have connections and can get to various people in power. And so part of their system is actually to keep the people in power, because it's much easier to influence a single person at the top that then will influence the rest of their structure, rather than have a grassroots movement to try to improve things or to try to change things in a direction that they want. But anyway, so they've got lots of resources. Consider them like another US. Oh, actually, I don't know how the US is doing these days. I imagine the economy's falling apart pretty badly. Okay, the driver, like, not to drive us there, but for source. A source for a meal. Is she, Alice would be finding this a little weird. Like, what's she supposed to call this? She's not used to the idea of calling a human like a snack or a food as a source. However, at the same time, she might be trying to prefer euphemisms at that time. While they're in their backyard or in Alice's backyard, it's nighttime. They don't expect the neighbors to be up, or out and about. She probably wouldn't want to just say what they're doing or say what's going on. What words did I use beforehand? You said you broke into a local doctor's office to get blood? Okay, so they can already speak. They're comfortable enough saying something like that that other people's not are not hearing them. For a run, can we just get the driver instead? Let's do this. The car. Can we just get the car instead? Alice's eyes lit up. The driver. Like, not to drive us there, but for a source. Okay, so now that she says this, what his reaction, I was considering that his reaction should be that nothing is happening here, or that no, they're not going to. That so he says no. Well, she says, for a run, can we get the car instead? Like, she's worried about running, but then thinks about the driver. So in the statement, when I just say for a run, and I'm questioning it, it's like she has no interest. Now, in like chapter 2 of this, she starts her day at the college by finding the local a little gym that's there and going to use one of the treadmills for an hour. So I did put an emphasis in that she does actually do some exercise. For a run, can we get the car instead? Alice's eyes lit up. The driver, like, not to drive us with it, but for a food source. Okay, so now Kyle has concerns. He's obviously wanting to do this, but again, 140 years. There's comfortability in how he can do things. Oh, that's right. I'll if he calls the service to have the driver come down or to come back out, because the driver basically will just go do their own thing until they're called, but they're supposed to be within a certain time distance away. They may be just parked and hanging out over at the gas station anyway. I can't. That car has cameras on it. The car has cameras on it. for insurance. Cameras on it for insurance. It would, oh, this could also be a perfect opportunity for Kyle to reference the secrecy that they can't leave clues. I can't. There are cameras on it for insurance. What would we be doing? Oh, we would need to have an excuse, at least. Or better yet, no reason for contact at all. I'm not sure where all the cameras are. Okay, so in this case, it would feel like, or it would be nice if the vampires had a way to detect cameras. However, in the vampire lore, technology and magic don't really mix, which is part of the reason that Alice is very unique in her abilities. The vampires don't have the ability to interact with it. Basically, the digital magic didn't show up until about 140 years ago. And since no wizards can really survive childhood or past like the first day of birth, then that provides an explanation to why you would never see one. Alice's allergy to the sun being detected well at birth and them actually being able to handle it, that's what's kept her alive. And so she is a magic user who was able to survive, what was that called? Mana burn. A spell that was cast on the sun to kill all magic users. All right. Okay, so not the cameras. We're going to leave the cameras out of this. I can't. That has cameras on it for insurance. It may have a camera on the front. I can't. Okay, it has the front. It can't hear anything in the back seat. With the divider up. But we would... No. The camera is not really the perspective he needs to bring up. He doesn't need to give a lot of detail and explanation here. We can keep this light. I can't. It puts a direct record. It puts a direct record that we are... I can't. It puts a direct record that with that person. And where we are. It's best to leave as few clues as possible. Okay, so maybe I don't need to say this. I think the reader would already be able to tell it's best to leave as few clues as possible. However, summarizing it down to that line explains the mindset he's in, so I don't need to try to give more details. I can't. It puts a direct record that we're with that person. That line right there, that we are with that person, that feels clunky. It makes a record of who we were with and where. I can't. It makes a record of who we're with. Of who we're with and where. It makes a record of who we're with. That still feels. And where. Okay, change this. Of where and who we are with. I can't. It makes a record of who and where we are with. It makes a record of where and who we are with. It feels natural that who would come first. Whatever, I'm going to leave it. It's best to leave as few clues as possible. So he's trying to be a little educational to her. So this makes sense. He was training her in a sense. She hasn't seen this before. Okay. Alice watched his thinky face for a moment before he continued. Okay, I'll go with that one. Alice watched his thinky face for a moment. It doesn't need to say much more. He's got an expression that makes it clear that he's thinking. Okay. Kyle stood still for a moment. I can get rid of those lines. Well, for now, let's try that. Are you up for a run? Okay. For a run? Can we get the car instead? Alice's eyes lit up. The driver. Like, not to drive us there, but for a source. I can't. It makes a record of where and who we're with. It's best to leave as few clues as possible. Alice watched his thinky face for a moment before he continued. He pulled out his phone and looked up delivery on Uber. Uber, is that it? Yeah, just Uber. He pulled out his phone and looked up a delivery on Uber. Almost nothing. Almost. No. This doesn't work because that goes against exactly what he was describing here. It makes a record of who and where and who we're with. So at this time, we are with the delivery driver. That's a problem. So he wouldn't be looking up that and looked up a grocery store that was open. Okay, so I should probably put them in an actual town now, somewhere bigger, like Madison. Madison has a lot of stuff. It has airport. It's not too big though, so all right, yeah, I'll go with Madison. He pulled out his phone and looked up a grocery store that was open. Closest was in Madison. Alice watched. Alice watched as we're going to go straight into action here. Alice watched as he pulled out his phone and looked up a grocery store that was about to open. The closest was in Madison, about 20 minutes out. No, I can add the time later. It was in Madison. This could work better. This could work better. Okay, so he would probably want to explain to her why a grocery store would work better. A grocery store could have a lot more random activity. People coming in and out. Most have poor camera coverage. In the parking lots, which is actually pretty true. Actually, I don't know. That was what it was like 10 years ago. Maybe that's changed. Well, it's still a smaller town, so yeah, very much less likely that there's any good coverage out there. She doesn't need to necessarily explain all this, though. This could work better. Unless she asks. Maybe she could ask here. Why would a gas be worse? Why would a gas station be worse? Why would a gas station be worse? Grocery. Gas stations employees usually operate behind glass. Something that would be awkward to pass. Do I need to explain that? No, I don't need to explain why. Operate behind enclosed spaces. So he spent most of his life now in New York. And so he has a skewed perspective. Like you get to a smaller town area and open counters is going to be far more normal. But in newer gas stations and in gas stations that are in bigger areas, you're going to have a much more commonly closed off separate space that separates the customers from the cashier. All right, small gas station employees usually operate behind enclosed spaces. Camera coverage on who might be the only person there. And direct camera coverage on who might be the only person there. He started texting the driver, but at a grocery store. Cameras, but at a grocery store, cameras are cover a wider view, cover a wider area. Okay, but at a grocery store, cameras cover a wider area, and it's so one camera has a lot more detail to pick up that it doesn't get. How do I express that? But at a grocery store, cameras cover a wider area. Cameras cover a wider area. What time is it? It's 16 after midnight. All right. But at a grocery store, cameras cover a wider area. What is that area? Oh, and also while I'm here, let's check to see it. Has disconnected. Publish branch again. The initial project size is too big, isn't it? I can't publish this project. That's why it wasn't published before. It was too big. That's gotta be it. Okay. Yeah. All right. He started texting the driver, but at a grocery store, cameras cover a wider area. They want to see an entire aisle, but having good coverage of detail needs the cameras closer. It's easy to spot. It's easy. Okay, let's do this a little bit later. It's easy to spot a camera in either place, but more angles to hide in a grocery store. More angles to hide in a grocery store. I might be able to come up with a better way to that. Say that. Oh. The driver texted back. "7 minutes. "7 minutes out." Um, in this book, there's several points where Alice is talking to her computer, which has an AI that was controlled by a spell, so it's far more active. And also text messages and emails as well. Well, emails were done differently, but text messages and things where you're typing in your answer most commonly, I was showing up through through these square brackets instead of quotes. 7 minutes out. All right, what's next on this one? The driver texted back 7 minutes out. some. And also are likely more people out at a grocery store. The driver texted back, and there's are likely more people out at a grocery store. The driver texted back 7 minutes out. They walked around to the front and waited. Kyle sent the address they were heading. A text as well. I don't need to include that. That can just happen. Oh, okay. So another thing that's happening is we're starting to build up more tension between, more romantic tension between Alice and Kyle. We've had a few moments inside of Kyle's head in some of the previous chapters. He basically hasn't been interested in her. His expressions showed that he wasn't someone who wanted to really be inside of a relationship, really. Not with someone who is only 20 years old. He's 140 and she's 20. Even though physically their bodies are about the same in age, her mind is only 20 years old. And so having a relationship with someone who doesn't have the mind to understand you, to understand the complexity and how you view the world, that's a big deal. Because, I mean, first off, just where you come from greatly influences what your perspective of the world is. But the second thing is going to be your age. So the longer you've had to think about things, I mean, most of us know people who just seem old for their age, like they seem older than their body would suggest they are. And this seems like someone who is more confident sometimes, or that they have a better understanding of what's going on. So they just kind of fit into that location or what's happening around them. Or that they recognize the power a human can have in front of another human and they can use it without being violent, for instance. Okay, they walked around to the front and waited. Okay, it feels like there should be an interaction between them, though. Alice, oh, Kyle is starting to question whether or not they should, if he actually did like her in an emotional way. He had used influences on her in the beginning to increase their relationship, but it was supposed to be more of like a trust relationship. For Alice, she was very socially outcast. She grew up largely alone, did not go to public schools, and basically lived in her basement for most of her life. So she had very little social interaction with other people, very little a concept of boyfriends or girlfriends growing up. And that's like all the way till the age of 19. And so now here she is, and there's a guy who somehow there's like this immediate friend connection that she has this trust with. And so she feels very connected to him. But at the same time, she learned he was using spells on her. And so she didn't like that. But at the same time, we also got his side, and he needed to find out if she was a vampire. And so he was trying to figure that out. And influence, if one vampire tries to influence another vampire, they recognize it. They can basically put a stop to it. And so he was expecting, by using influence on her, that if she were a vampire, it would have determined that. they would have recognized the influence and said something like, "You can stop. I can see what you're doing," or "I am a vampire." It's kind of a difficult topic to cover because that stretches a couple uncomfortable boundaries. All right. But I still want Kyle to be likable and respectable. So I suppose it's good that I put some coverage in his mind earlier. Anyway, that's not what this part is. So they walked around to the front and waited. What could happen here? Alice could lean against him. Actually, let's just see what that takes us. Alice leaned against. What do you call those things? They have chairs or benches that rock, where it's like a swing set bench. Alice leaned into Kyle, who put his arm around her. This would be a point where Kyle might just kind of start to do that because he's starting to build up this feeling with her. But he would start to snap to an uncomfortable state here as well. Like he doesn't feel like he should be in a relationship with her. So Alice leaned into Kyle, who put his arm around her. They're still in a current setup, like he has to be with her. He's kind of a protector in a sense. In this case, the coven sent him with her, and that's because like she's never eaten. She doesn't know all the laws, or she's never uh, fed from a human. She doesn't know all the vampire laws, and Kyle's currently responsible for getting her up to date. Um, and making sure she understands this stuff. But they also know about her ability with magic and computers, and so they are that's a weakness that they have. They can't mix magic and computers, but she can, and so they want to protect her. And so Kyle is there for protection. And so the excuse they used is that they're in a relationship together. She's off at college. She comes back for for a couple days, and she brings her boyfriend with. Okay, and then while back at college, it's very easy just to say that, oh yeah, he's not coming with. We broke it off, and she wouldn't necessarily send an updated message about that until she had another person maybe she was dating, or she just wouldn't bring it up at all until she comes back next time and they ask, well, what's Kyle coming with? And it's like, oh no, we stopped seeing each other. So she has an easy out from that because they aren't there side by side to see the ongoing relationship. Okay. Now Alice leaned into Kyle, who put his arm around her. Okay. This would be a point where she might want to feel like she wants to hold his hand, but at the same time, she would be very nervous about it. Oh, yeah, and she'd be kind of nervous about this too. Well, since they're pretending that they're together, they did sleep in the same room last night. They actually slept in the same bed in the previous chapter, where they were hugging for a while because Kyle was talking about some more complicated things than he was concerned about, and she hugged him, and then they held in their hug for a while. So there is this connection to feel like they can be next to each other. Okay, so yeah, I think Alice would be comfortable just leaning in, not like holding his hand or anything. All right. He'll put his arm around her. Kyle put his arm around her. Alice thought a slight spasm of his arm, a slight spasm in his arm. Alice thought she felt a slight spasm in his arm. Does that really say what he's, that he had a moment of being uncomfortable? His fingers. Okay. So someone puts their arm on you, but then you kind of feel like their hand back off, like, okay, they're still kind of there, but it's not. It's like a softer pressure. How would I express that? Like, puts his hand there, but then backs it up just a little bit. Okay. Alice thought she felt a slight spasm in his arm. And it wouldn't be a spasm then. Alice thought. And pull back from her arm. Small amount. Like, she could still feel it. Oh, okay. Reducing the pressure. Alice. Okay. But, okay, I hadn't said anything. They sat on the swinging bench. They sat on the swinging bench. Alice leaned into Kyle, who put his arm around her. At first, firm but soft grip on her arm. Softened. At this point, Alice might not be sure, was he worried about hurting her? Because he knows that she has signature telltale signs that she's a human, but at the same time she has vampire powers, so she could be more fragile. He doesn't even necessarily know if she can run long distance like he might be able to. Okay. But I didn't dive too far into the running scenario from earlier. At first, there was a firm but soft grip on her arm. I'm using but twice in the same sentence. It slight shake in his arm. I'm using the word grip. It feels like grip. That's like tight, but it feels like tight is in the word grip. Like gripped the handle. That's not like gentle. So grip is already emphasizing maybe too much force in the way his hand is moving. Did I say grip up here? Firm but soft grip on her arm. Okay, I'll change this. At first, there was a firm but soft grip on her arm, too. At first, his grip was, no, not. At first, it was firm grip. I gotta get away from that word. Okay. At first, there was a firm but soft grip on her arm. If that switches to hold, firm but soft hold on her arm, that still feels. It's the way the words come with it that feel more abrasive. Like I have to soften the sentence. At first, there was a firm but soft. Firmly or softly but firmly rested on her arm. She felt a slight shake. Stopped. Okay. She felt a slight shake that seemed like his arm stopped the pressure. See, the problem that I'm finding with writing emotions in this case is that a lot of the emotional tells do feel too hard to read out of these signals. I mean, that's part of like my own issue with this. When I take a look at most writing, I tend to see you take really strong examples of emotional bonds, emotional connections showing up on the pages. And they usually don't just flat out describe what's going on in someone's head. Instead, they show it through signals of what the body is doing and how they seem to be affected, how their body is affected by the environment around them. The problem is that that gives hints, but the hints have so many different potential directions. Even if we understand that it's not just like 100 hints that they're giving us and we have to try to pick out what's going on like in reality, it's more like they're calling out the specific hints, but I don't know exactly what that relates to. And that probably has a lot to do with me. Now, when I start to take a look at books that I like, I see a lot more explanation going deeper into it of like what's going on in the person's head directly. Where like one of my favorite books right now is My Vampire System. And in this one, it's what is it, like 13,000 pages long or something? I don't know exactly how long it is, um, but I think it was 70 books. Anyway, it was all available online through some of the sites where as far as I'm aware, the author actually posted it up there, and I think they get paid for it. I don't remember the name of it though. It's like webnovel.com or something like that. Anyway, their stuff spells out the emotions a lot. It actually just says like they were feeling concerned, or uh, Quinn is the main character and he's thinking about stuff. And so we find out directly what's going on in his mind, not just in there, but also what he thinks about people without actually saying words in his head. And so the more that I fight with this to try to express things in this other emotional sense, I feel like I don't connect with that as well. And I've been worried a lot about that as an author for this kind of thing, that most of the writers that post things they're all saying things like you have to express this in what they're doing and not just flat out says. Oh, response to this. No. Yes. Will come in a minute. Okay, I'm going to end the video in a minute. So I think this doesn't work for me, writing this style. I think I really like the writing style in that other one, and it spells more things out. The writing style in that, let's see if I can find this. My Vampire System web novel. Okay, there it is. Read. Yeah, so here it is. It's just inside this one. Now, if I go over to another chapter, it'll just give me a number. Let's go find it. Oh, is it just automatically loading these things up as I scroll down? Oh, it does. Okay, so how can I pick a chapter? Because that would be really suck to refresh the page, and now you got to find it. 3% done. Anyway, let's just scroll down a bit, and I'll pick a random chapter. No ability. Once the 5 students had heard their names being called, each one of them began to make their way towards the sergeant, who was waiting for them in front of the crowd. Apart from Quinn and Vorden, there was another boy in their group. Peter looked to be the most nervous among any of them. See, that one, they could have described what he would, why he looked nervous. I can't select on here? Oh, that's not going to happen. Let's go to this and hit F12. And now we're going to go to this one and select that one. Why can't we? Class div PR inside of here, shot content. Something is preventing me from doing that. Words, font, content, chapter content. You go away for a second. Good. Now hit escape, back in here. No, continue playing. Continue. I didn't mean to pause anything. Why is it paused? Just play. Go away. What did it keep? Oh, does this have actually some sort of debugger protection on it so that I can't do that? That's actually a cool idea. All right. Anyway, but I removed that from the chapter. Can I copy and paste? No, I'd have to figure out exactly where that is. All right, so I'll just point. All right. Peter looked to be the most nervous among them. That just flat out says he looked nervous. Whereas almost every thing that I come across tries to say whenever you're doing this, you should be expressing it as try to describe that. Like he stood there with his hands in his pockets and his arms tightly held to his side as he couldn't figure out exactly where to look and wouldn't look directly at people's faces and kept his face to the ground. Something along those lines might say that, but I'm taking a lot longer to express this. And while that could have perhaps worked there, that's a much larger example. But at the time, I don't necessarily need to dive that deep into what's going on. For me, I liked this. I felt this, like he looked nervous. And for me, that's about the best connection I get on this stuff. Sometimes in the reading, I get a lot more out of it. Okay, now let's take a look at a little bit more deeply. Or just go on to another spot in random. As soon as Griff gave the command, the hooded man planted both of his hands on the ground, and the square started to light up, shining a bright purple color. An ability to transport others, huh? Vorden said, leaning forward to speak into Quinn's ears, much to the latter's discomfort. So in this one, they're actually expressing that Vorden, another character, was leaning in to speak into Quinn's ears. They could have also just said Vorden was leaning in. when speaking. By leaning in when you're speaking to someone, I mean, if there wasn't any other signal that the person's going to kiss, then you probably wouldn't be thinking that. They're leaning in so that the other person can hear it without being overheard by others. Okay, so I can see how that part would be in there. Let's consider this: an ability to transport others, huh? Borden said, leaning forward. Now, I would need to describe that Quinn became uncomfortable in this. And now, so I would have to express both sides of that through the body language. Quinn leaned forward, or Vorden leaned forward, while Quinn, what did Quinn do? Quinn tightened up. Quinn, Quinn's shoulder, Quinn's shoulder that was closer to Vorden started to tighten in. So, hey, man. Okay, so when doing that, a person might just kind of like, another person's leaning, they're just kind of listening. They don't want to be like, they wouldn't get closer with their ear. They might actually back up a little bit and tighten up. They'll turtle that side of their body if they're uncomfortable with that presence coming in closer. So they would kind of curl a little bit towards the person, but part of their body would lean away. So I could try to describe that, but it feels like that would take a lot longer to express. And in this case, I'm not sure it would gain more. One of the ways that I look at this is that I'm seeing the ability to narrate someone. That when you're narrating, the narrator is like its own character as it describes things. So in this case, leaning forward to speak into Quinn's ears, much to the latter's discomfort. That was kind of a nice way of saying it, like much to the latter's discomfort. They also could have just said that Quinn became uncomfortable with how close Vorden was. But this one, much to the latter's discomfort. There's like this give and take going on in that sentence. They're being much more clear about exactly what is happening, what Quinn's feeling. And that Vorden isn't necessarily catching on to this, that there's a personality shift happening here. And I thought this was good. I don't see a problem with it. And I think part of this might actually be, to a certain degree, like Aspie tendencies. I'm guessing that there is, like, for myself, I have trouble reading and remembering emotions. Like when I see people, if someone asks me what's the happiest moment or the most angry moment or the pick another emotion, the most nervous moment that I had in my life, I would have trouble remembering it. I don't tend to retain memory of emotions. I experience it in the moment, but I don't retain it. And so studying this stuff it's just like, it's non-existent. It's like studying mathematic notation. It keeps disappearing in my head. But in this case, I think maybe this actually speaks to a certain audience. And so we have, and who is my target market? And I think in this case, it would be people who don't necessarily read the emotional speech as well, where they'll see things and they won't necessarily get the line. Okay, so the woman held the tablet in one of her clutches. Clutches? Busy thumbing through it. She ignored the group. So busy thumbing through it, like busy, that kind of describes that you're not paying attention. You have something specific you're focused on, reducing your focus on other things. I was already starting to catch that. She ignored the group that appeared before her and continued till she was done. Okay, so it's just flat out saying what she's doing and not really necessary. Well, it doesn't even give the emotional standpoint. It's just kind of saying what her body's doing at this point. So, okay. Once she had finished, she shifted her gaze to the students and began to speak. Okay. She ignored the group. This tells you that this person just doesn't care about the group so much, or that they're very focused on their job. They could have also just said this whole line is this person was very focused and then fact listed it, but it is still kind of is just fact listed. Hello, I am Jane, and I will be the one in charge of your test today. Once the test has been completed, I will be updating your information and your score will then be reflected on your wristwatches. Quinn noted that her face appeared to display the same emotional range as Aaron's. Now, Aaron was already described earlier as not having much emotional range. Now, who should we call first? Oh, it looks like we have a couple of previously leveled ones. Jane noted at her she ran across the tablet, her tablet screen. The tablet seemed such a delicate thing to hold in this place where the beautiful city was out of sight. The information. Okay, so like they're camping or something? See, in this case, the description I feel went a little weird. The tablet, Jane noted as her eyes ran across the tablet screen. The tablet seemed such a delicate thing to hold in this place where the beautiful city was out of sight. Out of sight. They appeared in more of a wild area, I think. I honestly don't remember that much. So that line right there doesn't really connect to me. Peter Chuck stepped forward. The nervous, small physiqued Peter did as he had been told, looking even worse than before. Okay, it didn't say why. Quinn thought that he appeared unsightly, yet he looked to be in perfect condition if you were to compare the two. At least Quinn was able to stand up, whereas Peter looked like he would fall over at any second. Okay. I mean, they are using body comparisons. They're mixing in pieces of both, and I think that's what I'll continue to do. I like this form of reading. And this one where I'm trying to describe this area, I'm going to back off of this style a little bit more, and I'm going to read the stuff that I've written already and kind of question where I've been doing this. Of course, that means I've got almost 50 chapters to go through. All right, so let's save this stuff. Go to GitHub. That one's not saving yet. I cannot save that one because it's too big. I hate GitHub for that. Sorry, you can't upload. Your project is too big to put onto our stuff. Even though you can have this much on our system, we can't accept your initial project upload being that large. I don't get it. Why? All right. The law, ignore snack. Okay. More 43. Commit, push.